Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into the world of global food prices.
A topic that, well, hits home for everyone.
It really does, literally. Everyone eats, right? So understanding what shapes those prices can be surprisingly revealing.
For sure. It's like peeking behind the curtain.
Exactly. And today's Deep Dive is based on some really interesting research sent in by one of our listeners. They asked, how have global food prices changed over the last decade, and what factors are influencing those changes?
A big question.
Yeah. To get to the bottom of it, they sent us a research paper titled Analyzing Global Food Prices, Trends and Insights.
Interesting.
Along with a snippet of a conversation discussing it.
Okay.
So we're going to break it all down together.
Sounds like a good investigation. We'll need to examine the evidence.
Right. Connect the dots and see what story emerges.
Exactly.
Okay. So the research paper paints a pretty clear picture. Global food prices have generally been rising over the last 10 years, but with some significant swings along the way.
Fluctuation.
Yeah. So it's not just a slow and steady increase. It's more like a roller coaster.
Oh, wow.
With some unexpected dips and turns.
Makes sense.
For example, remember those empty grocery store shelves?
Oh, yeah.
Back at the peak of COVID?
Of course.
That wasn't just a feeling.
Right.
The data actually shows just how much the pandemic shook things up.
The pandemic really exposed just how interconnected our global food system is, border closures, transportation issues, even panic buying all contributed to those price spikes and those shortages.
Right.
The data really reveals how vulnerable our supply chains are.
Yeah. It's fascinating how a global event like that can have such a huge ripple effect. Reaching all the way to our local grocery stores.
Totally.
Now, while the overall trend is upward, the research also shows some really interesting differences between countries.
Like what?
Well, it seems like Australia and South Korea, for example, have managed to keep food prices relatively stable.
Interesting. What are they doing differently?
I'm not sure. That's what we need to figure out. Could it be, specific agricultural policies or their focus on local production?
It's possible. The conversation snippet actually suggests something along those lines.
I love it.
Yeah. It mentions that Australia has invested heavily in agricultural technology and infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
Efficient supply chains.
Right.
A strong agricultural sector. Those likely play a part in their more stable food prices.
That makes sense.
And then there's South Korea. They've implemented policies specifically aimed at supporting domestic food production and stabilizing prices. It seems they've both found their own strategies that work for them.
So different approaches for different situations.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
But unfortunately, other countries seem to be having a tougher time.
Is that right?
Yeah, the research points to Brazil, Mexico, and Russia as examples of places grappling with higher food prices.
I wonder what's at play there.
Well, we have to consider things like economic instability.
Right.
Reliance on imports.
Yeah.
And maybe even the influence of organized crime, as the conversation snippet suggests.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So each country really has its own set of challenges then.
It's a complex web of factors. For instance, in Mexico, cartel activity can disrupt those transportation routes.
Yeah.
And affect agricultural production, which drives prices up.
Makes sense.
And in Brazil, things like currency fluctuations and their dependence on imported fertilizers can contribute to those volatile prices.
I see.
And of course, in Russia, economic sanctions and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine are playing a role.
Of course.
It's definitely driving up the costs there.
It's like a puzzle, figuring out how all these pieces fit together.
Absolutely.
Now, I found it fascinating that the research doesn't just look at those broad trends. It actually digs deeper into the price changes of specific food categories,
Okay.
Like looking under a microscope to see those finer details.
Yeah, that level of analysis can be really insightful.
It really is. By examining specific types of food, we can start to see those unique forces at play.
Absolutely. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Exactly. For example, the research looks at cereals, rice, wheat, maize.
The staples.
Right. Those are the foods where even small price fluctuations can have huge consequences.
Especially in countries where they're essential.
Exactly.
It's about food security.
Right.
And then it also examines sugar.
Oh, interesting.
Which, it's not a necessity,
right,
but it's a commodity with a global sweet tooth attached to it. And its price has its own story to tell.
I like that. Its own story.
Yeah.
And then there's oil, right? Yeah. Which is used for so much more than just cooking.
Oh, absolutely. From cooking to biofuels.
Yeah.
The demand for oil is always shifting,
right,
making its price, well, incredibly unpredictable.
volatile.
Yes. And we can't forget about dairy, a staple in so many diets, facing its own challenges.
Right, like milk, cheese, yogurt.
Exactly. These everyday things are becoming more and more expensive.
It's true.
And let's not forget about fruits, those healthy snacks we all enjoy. From bananas to apples, even their prices have a story.
It seems like every food category has its own unique narrative then.
Oh, for sure.
Shaped by a combination of global trends and local conditions.
Exactly. And that's where this research gets really interesting.
How so?
Well, it highlights this link between food prices and population density, particularly in areas with high poverty.
Now that seems counterintuitive.
Mm.
Wouldn't you think food would be cheaper?
You would think so, right?
Yeah, where there are more people and more potential customers.
It's a common misconception, but that's why this finding is so important.
Okay, so explain it to me like I'm 5 then.
Haha, okay. Imagine a very densely populated area. Resources are already stretched thin. Infrastructure is lacking.
Okay, I'm with you.
And a big chunk of the population depends on imports for their food. In those situations, just getting the food to the people who need it becomes a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I could see that.
And that leads to higher costs.
So it's not just about the food itself then.
No.
It's about the whole system that brings it from the farm to the table.
Exactly. Transportation, storage, distribution, they all play a huge role.
Right.
And in places with lots of people and limited resources, those systems can get overwhelmed, and that pushes prices up.
It highlights how important it is then to invest in those efficient and resilient food systems.
Yes, especially in these regions.
Especially in those regions.
This also underscores just how unevenly those global food price trends impact people.
Right.
Some populations, especially those already struggling with poverty, are far more vulnerable to these shifts.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that behind all the data points are real people whose lives are directly affected by these price swings.
Absolutely. It's not just some abstract economic idea, you know?
Right.
It's about food security, basic human needs. And that's what makes this research so powerful. It helps us understand that complex web of factors that influence these food prices.
Yeah.
And highlights the need for solutions that address both the economic and social parts of this challenge.
Absolutely. So we've uncovered some key insights from this research. Global food prices are going up, but with big differences across countries and food categories.
Yeah.
Factors like supply and demand, production costs, climate change, even population density, they all play a role.
That's true.
But this is just the start of our deep dive.
Okay.
Now, what's really interesting is that the conversation snippet you sent in mentions this concept of data storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
And hints that it can help us understand these complex issues in a more, engaging and impactful way.
Interesting.
Yeah. So before we get into how data storytelling can help us understand the world of food prices, let's take a moment to really unpack this concept. What exactly is data storytelling and what makes it so powerful?
Well, at its core, data storytelling is about connecting with an audience on an emotional level.
Oh, okay.
It's about using data to not just inform,
right,
but to inspire, to persuade, to create understanding. It's like this. Instead of just showing a graph of rising food prices,
right,
a data storyteller might zoom in on a particular family struggling to put food on the table.
Okay.
Share their personal story, their struggles, their hopes, their fears.
Right.
Suddenly, those abstract numbers become real, relatable.
Right.
They resonate emotionally.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that. Instead of telling someone about a recipe,
right,
you actually bake them a cake and they get to experience it.
I like that, yeah. It's about turning those abstract trends into something tangible and relatable.
Exactly.
So it's not just about presenting the facts then. It's about creating a story that people can connect with.
A narrative on an emotional level.
Right. I can definitely see how that's more effective than just, throwing stats at people.
Absolutely. And in the context of these global food prices, data storytelling can be incredibly powerful.
Oh.
For example, let's say we want to raise awareness about the impact of climate change on agriculture.
Right.
Instead of just, giving people all these numbers about rising temperatures and unpredictable rainfall.
Right.
We could share a story about, say, a farmer in a drought-stricken region struggling to grow crops and provide for their family.
That's a good idea.
We could show how their livelihood, their traditions, their entire way of life is being threatened by these changes.
Yeah, I can see how that paints a much more vivid picture than just, dry statistics.
Exactly. It makes it personal,
right?
Relatable.
Yeah.
Or imagine we want to push for policies that support sustainable farming practices.
Yeah.
So instead of just quoting studies and stats,
Right.
we could use data storytelling to highlight success stories of farmers who've adopted these practices.
That's smart.
We could show how they benefit not just the environment, but also improve their yields.
Right.
And their profits.
I like it. So it's about showing, not just telling.
That's it.
Right. And by rooting these stories in real data,
Yeah.
we're adding credibility and depth.
Absolutely. Data storytelling helps us go beyond the abstract and into the real human experience. We connect the dots between global trends and individual lives, making those trends feel real, urgent, and relevant to our choices.
I like that. This is really making me think about how we can use data storytelling to engage with the issue of global food prices, in a more meaningful way.
I think it's a great tool.
But how can we, as individuals, incorporate this? It seems like something more for, journalists or filmmakers or data analysts.
Not at all. Data storytelling is a skill anyone can learn and use.
Oh, really?
Yeah, think about it. We all tell stories every day.
That's true.
We share anecdotes, experiences, observations with our friends, family, colleagues.
Yeah.
Data storytelling is simply about weaving data into those stories to make them more compelling, more persuasive, more impactful.
So if I'm trying to convince my family to eat more plant-based meals,
Okay.
instead of lecturing them about the impact of meat production,
Right.
I could share the data, but, frame it as a story about how we can make a positive difference together.
Exactly. Or if you're passionate about supporting local farmers, you could use data to show the economic benefits of buying local produce.
I see.
You could create a social media post. Maybe a chart showing how much money stays in the community when people shop at those farmers markets.
Right.
And then share a personal story about your favorite farm stand or the produce you found there.
That's a great idea. It's about making that data accessible.
Yeah.
Engaging.
Turning it into a conversation starter.
Right. A way to connect with people and share your passion.
Exactly. And the best part is you don't need to be a data whiz to do this.
Oh, that's good.
There are so many tools online, free and easy to use.
Oh, cool.
They can help you visualize data, make charts and graphs.
I see.
Tell compelling stories. You can find data on almost anything these days.
Oh, wow.
From climate change to food prices to local economic trends, it's all out there, waiting to be discovered.
Wow. This is really inspiring. It's like opening up a whole new world.
It is.
For understanding these complex issues. But how do we make sure these stories, go beyond just raising awareness? How can we use data storytelling to create real change, particularly when it comes to, something as complicated as global food prices?
That's the million-dollar question. The key is to go beyond just informing people and into the realm of inspiring them to act. We need to use these stories to mobilize people, to get them involved in the political process,
right,
to demand change from their elected officials,
I see,
to make more conscious choices in their daily lives.
So it's about channeling that emotional response into concrete action.
Yes, it's about empowering people to become agents of change.
I like that.
We need to turn those emotions, those insights, into a force for change. We can contact our representatives, support organizations working on these issues, make informed choices about where we buy our food, and even share those data stories with our networks to spread the message.
I love that call to action. It's about realizing that we're not just, passively absorbing information,
right,
but active participants in shaping the future of our food systems.
Exactly.
So with this new understanding of data storytelling, let's turn back to that research you sent.
Okay.
And think about specific ways we can apply these principles to the issue of, global food prices. The conversation snippet you shared hinted that there are some really interesting stories hidden within the data. What kind of narratives jump out at you? What insights can we bring to life through data storytelling?
There are so many compelling narratives just waiting to be uncovered.
Like what?
Well, for instance, we could shed light on the often invisible issue of food waste.
Oh.
Did you know that about a third of all food produced globally is lost or wasted?
Wow, I had no idea it was that much. That's definitely a story that needs to be told.
Right.
Yeah. How can we use data storytelling to, bring it to life and inspire action?
Well, imagine a campaign combining the shocking stats on food waste with personal stories of people finding creative ways to reduce waste in their homes, restaurants, communities. We could highlight innovative businesses tackling this head-on.
Oh, interesting.
Turning discarded food into delicious meals, or composting it to enrich the soil,
Yeah.
we could showcase the tangible benefits of less waste for both the planet and our wallets.
It's about making the invisible visible then, right?
Exactly. Showing people the problem in a way that they connect with and inspires them to be part of the solution.
I like it. What else?
We could also advocate for policies that promote fair trade practices.
Okay.
Tell the stories of farmers in developing countries who are struggling to earn a living wage.
Right.
Show how fair trade can empower them, improve their quality of life, and create a more just global food system.
Right, so connect consumers with the people who grow their food then.
Exactly. Make those choices at the grocery store more meaningful.
It's about humanizing those supply chains then.
Yes, reminding people their choices have a ripple effect.
Right, okay. What else?
We could also use data storytelling to champion the adoption of sustainable agriculture.
Okay.
Share stories of farmers leading the way in regenerative farming.
Oh, interesting.
Demonstrate how these methods not only benefit the environment, but also improve soil health and crop yields.
Right.
Create more resilient farming systems.
Right.
We could show that sustainable agriculture isn't just about doing what's right for the planet.
Right.
It's about creating a more secure and abundant food future.
Yeah, for everyone.
Exactly.
So it's about moving beyond just the doom and gloom then.
Yeah.
And highlighting the solutions.
Yes. It's about showing people that we can create a more sustainable and equitable food system.
Like one step at a time.
One story, one choice, one action at a time.
I like that. That's where the real power of data storytelling is then.
It is. It's not just about informing people. It's about inspiring them, empowering them, and giving them hope that change is possible.
I'm really starting to see how data storytelling can change how we think about global food prices. It's not just about crunching the numbers then.
It's about the narrative.
Yeah, weaving them into narratives that connect with people on a deeper level, prompting them to think differently, act differently, and be part of the solution.
Exactly. It's about harnessing the power of stories to shed light on those complex realities of our food systems and inspire a collective movement toward a better future.
I love it. It's been so insightful to talking about this concept of data storytelling with you and seeing how it can be applied to such an important issue.
I agree.
But I'm ready to dig deeper into that research you sent.
Okay.
And uncover those specific narratives that you mentioned. What are some of the key findings we can bring to life through data storytelling? What are those hidden connections and surprising insights that we can reveal?
Let's unpack those stories. One of the most striking things the research found relates to the impact of those major global events on food prices.
Interesting.
It's like we're looking through a historical lens.
Yeah.
And seeing how things that seem so unrelated to our daily lives can send shockwaves through that global food system.
Right.
For instance, the research looks at how the conflict in Ukraine has disrupted global grain supplies, leading to price increases and highlighting how interconnected our food systems are.
Right.
It's a reminder that peace and stability are vital for food security.
It's a powerful point. Reminds us that what happens in one part of the world can really affect everyone, especially when it comes to something as essential as food.
Absolutely. The research also looks into how organized crime affects food prices.
Oh, right.
Particularly in places like Mexico.
Okay.
It examines how cartel activity can disrupt those transportation routes, impact agricultural production, ultimately contributing to those price fluctuations. It's a story that reveals the hidden costs of crime and corruption.
Yeah, it does.
And highlights the need for good governance and the rule of law.
Right, to ensure a stable and affordable food supply.
Exactly. It's like shining a light on the underbelly of the global food system, you know?
It is, exposing the things that often go unnoticed.
Yes.
But have real consequences.
Absolutely.
The research also explores those devastating impacts of hyperinflation on food security.
Yeah, it's a crucial point.
It examines cases like Venezuela.
Right.
Where inflation has made basic food unaffordable.
Yeah.
Leading to hunger and hardship.
It's a cautionary tale.
It is.
Underscoring the importance of those sound economic policies.
Right.
And the devastating consequences when they fail.
It's really sad to see how economic problems can affect people's access to food.
It's truly heartbreaking.
Yeah. And these are just a few examples of those stories that come out of the data.
Right.
And by using the principles of data storytelling, we can turn these findings from dry statistics into something engaging and impactful.
Absolutely.
That can raise awareness, inspire action, and contribute to a more just and sustainable food future for everyone.
That's the goal.
Yeah, it's amazing how data storytelling can turn these complicated issues into stories that are both informative and really moving.
For sure. And by connecting with those stories, on an emotional level, we're more likely to really remember them.
Right.
Understand them.
Yeah.
And actually want to do something about it.
It's like that saying, a story's worth 1,000 data points.
Exactly. But data storytelling isn't just about, pulling at heartstrings.
Right. There's more to it.
It's about using that data to provide the context, the evidence, the depth to those narratives.
So it's about combining that emotional power of storytelling with the hard facts, the insights from the data.
Exactly. It's about using data to really highlight the problem, showcase those solutions, and help people become part of the change.
I'm really excited to see how we can apply these ideas to this issue of global food prices. The research and that conversation snippet has given us so much to think about.
It really has. And I think one of the most powerful ways to use data storytelling in this context is to focus on, agency.
Okay.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by these huge global challenges.
Right.
But data storytelling can remind us that we all have a part to play.
Yeah, no matter how small.
Exactly. So instead of feeling helpless, we can use these stories to actually empower ourselves and others.
They actually make a difference.
Exactly. For example, we could create narratives that highlight the impact of our choices as consumers on food prices and the environment. Show how simple things like choosing local produce, reducing food waste, opting for more plant-based meals can contribute to a more sustainable and just system.
It's about showing people that those everyday choices really do matter.
They absolutely do. We could also use data storytelling to advocate for policies that support sustainable agriculture, fair trade, and investment in food infrastructure.
Those are important.
We could share success stories of communities that have implemented those policies.
Okay.
Show the benefits for both people and the planet. Those kinds of stories can inspire people to get involved in politics.
Yeah, just to contact their representatives.
Exactly, to demand change from their leaders.
It's about turning those small actions into a big movement for change.
Precisely. And by combining data with those stories, we can make those calls to action much stronger, more persuasive, and reach a larger audience.
This has been such an insightful conversation. We've not only explored the world of global food prices, but also discovered a really powerful tool to understand and address this challenge.
Data storytelling has the potential to completely change how we think about and engage with these issues.
Right. By connecting us with those human stories behind the numbers.
Yes.
Helping us understand that complex web of factors.
Absolutely.
And inspiring action to create a better food future for everyone.
It reminds us that knowledge is power, but knowledge shared through stories, that's even more powerful.
That's a great point. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into global food prices and the power of data storytelling.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've learned something valuable and feel inspired to use your own voice.
And actions.
To create a more just and sustainable food system.
For everyone.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.